Hi, this is Ed back again with another video. Shout out to everybody on Patreon and a subscribe star. Thank you so much for your support. Shout out to everyone on the Hive blockchain for those upvotes. They mean a lot. Thank you for those. Let's just get right into it. So for many years now, okay, for a decade at least since I've been on YouTube, I have been talking about Apous, and now it's heading to planet Earth. Now a lot of people say it'll miss Earth or whatever. I don't know. All I know is for a long period of time they couldn't predict the orbits of three objects around a specific planet or star or whatever the case was exactly. I don't know exactly much about the three-bodied problem. Everything I know about it I read in the book The Three-Bodied Problem and subsequently looked up. But the main takeaway from that, whatever the specific configuration of it was it a star or whatever, it was those three things in orbit. The main takeaway is they couldn't figure out for a long time how to predict with certainty or accuracy what the orbits would be, because there was a problem with a slight wobble or something like this, which threw off their predictions slightly in regarding these things operating around or orbiting around a planet. How I understand it, could be wrong. It's not really. It doesn't matter if. And regarding that, I'm just using that as an example. They weren't able to make these very concrete predictions on something which they could optically observe for a long period of time or use their instruments in order to try to measure. Is difficult, right? There are many difficult things. Humans do the best they can. But somehow they've predicted the path of this particular asteroid to miss Earth, will certainly miss Earth according to NASA. As you can see here, NASA saying that the object, which is about 300 meters, some people put it at 450 meters. That's another interesting thing because they don't exactly know how big it is either. Well, they're saying over 300, so I guess they can mean make it larger there. In size, they say that this will harmlessly pass Earth on April the 13th, 2029. So it's actually 375 meters it puts it over here. And I think on Wikipedia it changes it again, although maybe it is around about that. It says 450 meters. So here we have, well, if you look at the three-body problem, whatever that is, I vaguely remember it, so don't really go look it up. They haven't been able to really accurately measure that. It was a big problem or something, right? Here they have three different measurements for its size. So they don't know how big it is. They can't measure its size with that much accuracy. In fact, you're dealing with 350 meters here. Well, NASA says over 300, which they're saying over 300. So I guess they are doing an estimate of just over 300. Other places say it's like 275 meters. Well, sorry, 375 meters, at least in this article. And this article was taken from Massachusetts Evening News. Who knows which one is correct? Maybe it's a case of them putting out a number and it's been interpreted differently, but why there's so many differences in regarding the size of the object? Okay, so if you want to make a prediction, you need to know the mass of something, right? Or you need to know a size. I guess if it's moving through space, that might not be so much of a problem. But you'd expect to know this precisely, that there'd be a precise measurement of its size. Now, it is possible that the object being maybe elongated or something, its measurement is 375 in one direction, 450 in another. Is that what they're doing? They don't have an overall measurement of it. I guess that, well, how would they measure it? I guess they'd just take it at its longest end. But you've got all these kinds of things here. So they're saying that this will miss Earth. They're saying that it will miss Earth because it'll pass within 36,000 kilometers of Earth or 20,000 miles. And this is a major concern. By the way, look at its name, 9942 Apous, right? Apous is obviously Egyptian. I've got a reference for it coming up. Actually, I might have been on that other slide I had. 66999, of course, what's that? It's basically 666. It's not 666, it says 999, but it's kind of a very interesting, everything seems upside down and backwards whenever they're saying things. But Apous was one of the most important deities in ancient Egyptian mythology. Who Apous was? A giant serpent snake deity representing chaos, darkness, and destruction. The eternal enemy of Ra, the sun god, lived in the Egyptian underworld. Never fully defeated, always threatening to return. The daily battle every night as Ra travelled through the underworld in a solar boat, Apous would attack him, trying to devour Ra and end the cycle of day and night, plunge the world into darkness and chaos. So that is the choice they made for that particular asteroid. I got this from Claude, by the way. It says Apous equals the ultimate threat, the end of everything, cosmic destruction. So interesting name to choose for an asteroid which might or might not hit Earth, right? You call it the asteroid that's going to end everything. But will it hit Earth? I don't want to frighten everybody. It's 300 meters, so even if it did hit Earth, it wouldn't be a world ender. It will certainly cause a massive amount of damage. Where it's said to hit is South America, the Americas there. So if do they really have that accuracy in terms of the prediction of where it'll hit? Probably not. This is probably all just make-believe. I mean, I'm only saying that instinctively. I don't know for sure. Maybe you could do these calculations. How complicated would it be? Maybe it wouldn't be complicated at all, but would they tell you if it was going to hit, let's say, if it's going to directly hit some, New York, or it's going to directly hit, I don't know, London, when it might be their telescopes which are in control of that data? Would they just slide a zero over to say it hit somewhere else? Yeah, they would do that, right? I mean, we know that they'll obfuscate data even when it's the complete opposite of reality. I mean, South African documents regarding the Pfizer agreement stated in those documents that Pfizer didn't know the efficacy at all. They didn't know if there was no data on it. Okay, so those are the same agreements that would have been signed worldwide, because why would they be any different if they've been signed at the same time? Just suddenly Pfizer know the efficacy is 100% if it's been signed in England? No, they'll be the same. Yet all the politicians lied about it. All of them. And we're half a decade later, and none of them have told the truth about it. None of them. These are only things that come out in court documents, and then there's little news stories, and then it's vaporizers. None of them have admitted to anything. So they have the most important thing to take away from this is, even if this was going to hit any country right there in the center of it, if they had the accuracy in order to do that, and maybe they don't. The realistic thing is maybe they don't. But let's say they did. They would never tell you, right? They would never tell you at all. So 450 meters, says Wikipedia. Okay, so 450 meters in size. That caused a brief period of concern in December 2004. So brief period of concern when initial observations indicated a probability of 0.027 or 2.7 that it would hit Earth on Friday, April the 13th, 2029. So then they changed that prediction to something else. So it's not 2%, it's something else now, right? You see, the predictions are always changing. The size of it seems to always be changing. Again, I should backtrack and say, I don't exactly know how they define measurement of the asteroid. Are they measuring, because they're just saying in meters, at Wikipedia it says 400 meters by 170 meters, and the other one is, I guess it would be 370 meters by whatever, 170 meters or whatever, right? So these kind of dimensions are kind of changing. So how do they define their measurements? How they define that? I mean, how are they can measure it, but then how are they putting that out to the public? What is their method and how they're going to put that out to the public? Obviously, this is a non-symmetrical, this is an object that's different on all sides, right? So I'm not exactly not sure how they do that. But anyway, it's irrelevant, okay? The mere fact is, are their predictions accurate? So here in terms of size, and there's something interesting I'll show you a bit later, and this is why I always talk about the elephant in the room. I'm going to talk about clues in regarding a certain type of feeling. I don't have any evidence that of this, really. It's more of like, I guess you'd say, something I find interesting, but there's all these little clues. What is the elephant in the room? Is it an asteroid? I don't know. I really don't. I don't know what it is. This asteroid isn't a world ender, but it's certainly an insane problem. I mean, if this hits the ocean or hits a location, millions of people would die, and there'd be super tsunamis. Okay, not quite the size of the ones in 2012, as far as I'm aware, unless you're close to it. I mean, you're dealing with an insane sized object, right? You're dealing with something that's basically 1/3 of a mile in size, right? A mile being 1.6 kilometers if you want your conversion. So here is here's in terms of how far away it is. So they are saying that it's going to scrape by Earth at 36,000 kilometers from Earth's surface, right? Give or take, they say a couple of thousand kilometers. That's their error. They're saying they're what they're giving themselves in terms of leeway in their prediction. By saying 36,000 kilometers. By the way, again, as I said, if it was going to hit, they wouldn't tell you anything anyway. They bend all their numbers. We know that. We've seen the biggest example of that in human history for the last 5 years. But this is what they're saying. So based upon what they're saying 36,000 kilometers, right? So here is the distance from New Zealand to Los Angeles. I flew this a lot, actually, a few times. When I used to live in the States for a while. And this is about a 12-hour flight. So you're dealing with about 11,000 kilometers in one direction. I made this in Claude, by the way. So you're dealing with 36,000 kilometers. So obviously this particular graph Claude made, that distance in green isn't exactly a correct distance in regarding the distance between obviously New Zealand and Los Angeles. That's just done there for the graph reasons. So you're dealing with basically 3 times the distance from New Zealand to Los Angeles in regarding the window of where, the upper window of where this is actually going to pass planet Earth. So it's incredibly close, right? When I heard that 36,000 kilometers, I was like, wait on, that's like 3 times the distance I used to fly in a plane. Okay? That's 3 times the distance of what I used to fly in a plane. So anyway, there is 31,000 kilometers in terms of distance. So here's what we know. We know they lie, right? They have no problem with it. We know they are completely keep a secret. Okay, grammatical error. Just typed it out. They can keep a secret. They have no problem with it. And the worst thing is you don't need any pressure for people to keep the secret. They will just keep it, right? It might be like a fantastical, strange anomaly of human nature, but something's been revealed where people have no interest in talking about something that they know, like the side effects and things like that, which happen in our society. They have no interest in talking about them at all or admitting that they're real. I'm talking about the general population, not someone like scrolling, I don't know, scrolling some kind of forum at midnight, right? I'm talking about normal general public. We know that they gaslit light any attempt to tell the truth. Yeah. Anyway, most likely would they never tell us, but it would be the default option. Sorry. Didn't get much sleep last night. I have to apologize. Yeah, these are all a bit over the place, but you get the gist of what I'm saying there. So scientists warn, and this is on the 28th of May, so very recent, whatever it's worth. Scientists warn city-killing asteroids could be headed for Earth within weeks after revealing fatal detection flaw. So why does this matter? Because I remember hearing about this person's talking about what was called the Oort cloud. And this was in regarding St. Cow's, but they were saying that there are these kinds of clouds, not specifically this one, but there's this specific clouds of like asteroids and debris that the planet Earth might pass through from time to time, and this has a massive uptick in asteroids. I don't know exactly how they said it. It was more complicated than that. But, you know, one asteroid usually will be combined with others when you move into the specific sector. So there's 3 particular asteroids here, have orbits that take these asteroids dangerously close to Earth. The 3 asteroids flying along with Venus, 3 asteroids flying along with Venus, measure between 330 and 1,300 feet in diameter, making each one capable of leveling entire cities and setting off massive fires and tsunamis. And they say there's a detection problem, right? And they went all over. So I don't know if this is true or these kinds of things are true. Remember, these scientists have been saying that we're going to be underwater by now. There is also, we have to admit, even though some information might be true and some might not, that there is definitely an interest in propagating narratives to create noise and fear, which might be because of St. Cow's. If you knew that, let's say, there was a world-killing asteroid headed to Earth, okay, what would you do? You try to create as much noise as possible in society so no one can think anymore. No one knows what's real anymore, right? This is all beneficial for you operating in the background towards your goal. Right, in your room, you've got everybody knows how to do mathematics, everybody knows how to read, everyone knows how to spell, and everyone knows how to think. Outside the room, in general society, no one knows how to. That's the goal, right? Is to have the concentration of not only talent and ability, but also have that only, you know, consolidated within your group. No one else, you don't want have those kinds of abilities. You know, you want them to be all lost in the woods while you do whatever you want. And anyway, that was the new information that came out in regarding that. Now, here is something interesting I thought was interesting, again, just on this particular track. For many years, I've been looking at the Goddard Tunnel ceremony, as you say, and I'm obviously well versed in what all the symbolism with it, well, trying to depict the symbolism in the Goddard Tunnel. It doesn't mean I'm depicting it correctly, but you know, having a look at it, and I'm quite aware of it. I've done deep dives into it before. But here was a specific track, and this is what I mean by clues. This doesn't necessarily reference anything. All this is hearsay, right? There's nothing really I can say definitely connects to things. There's just kind of this feeling. I don't know what it is. I don't have any concrete things. But here in the Goddard Tunnel ceremony, everyone dismisses the stuff with the rocks, right? You know, the ceremony, they say, yes, this has to do with tunneling. And it does. I admit that. I mean, the symbolism in this regard could be depicted as tunneling. But have a look at these 3 different things together which flow in sequence of the Goddard Tunnel ceremony. If you don't know what that is, it was a very elite ceremony of the opening of the tunnel. I've got some information, I'll just reference it here. But very, everyone who's anybody in the European Union and across the world was there. All the elites, royalty, all types of people, prime ministers, presidents, everybody, right? They were all there. And the ceremony was so abstract and cryptic, when it hit the news cycles, people saying, what does this mean? And we don't understand what it means. That's because they speak a different language, literally a different language of symbolism, right? If you put symbolism such as, you know, a big guy in a red jacket with a big fluffy white beard on a sleigh, that's a collection of symbolisms, right? And you'll know what that is. That's Santa Claus. This is completely alien because symbols are a language in themselves, right? Because it's how they interpret them and they mix them together. And because this language of symbols is completely alien to people because it's of a different culture. They are complete and different culture. Right? Some people like Richard Dolan believe that it's breakaway civilization stuff, and these people are just basically sales reps for the underground cities or whatever the case is. I don't know, that could be true. They certainly have underground bunkers, very sophisticated ones. However, if you look at these 3 symbols, first of all, you have this rock face, right? I think these are interesting together. You say, okay, this got to do with tunneling. That's what these work people are for. Then you combine it with this symbolism. What is that? That's an asteroid, right? This is a big part of the Goddard Tunnel ceremony on one particular side, all this, right, what we've seen here. What is that? It's an asteroid. It's a rolling rock in space, and you can go have a look at the video. I'm not going to play it here because it's well known. You can see the time code there, 3856 on the Russia Today video. Russia Today has, as far as I'm aware, the only full-length video that's online has been consistently online. All the other networks just covered snippets of it, because why would they cover any more than that? They're all there in order to dress up the politicians, right? To dress them up, not dress them down. Dressing them down, that's an old thing. They don't do that anymore. They dress them up. So any kind of bad things or possible negative interpretation, they snip that out and cut that out. So they only had interest in very small clips and saying, oh, it does look weird, doesn't it? Yeah, it does look weird, and then they cut out. They don't really go into any depth. Here you can see what is, in my opinion, an asteroid. It's my interpretation. Looks like an asteroid to me. Flying through space, okay? So when you follow this particular scene here, okay, of the rocky cliff and the workmen all heading towards it, by the way, where's that from? Right, that's the second panel of the Bank of America mural, with all the people in the red work hats underground, right? And the sleeping giant above, sleeping giant symbolic of a coming catastrophe or coming giant or coming problem. Okay, so you have this looks like workmen. What are they doing now? Well, they say they're building a tunnel, but building a bunker maybe. Here is a giant asteroid, and what happens to all the people on the ground? They all fall down dead. But they're all dead now, right? They're all dead. So then you have the asteroid coming, okay? Then what do you have after that? Well, just to go over, you have these ethereal moments, just very quickly for those people that aren't familiar. You have all the people go up as ghosts. That's one interpretation, which is seen through the lens of the eye. And you can see around the video here, there's this eye-like lens. That's the iris, right? That's seeing these three particular people. So, okay, you have this, and you have this giant eye and all these people going up to it. If you have a giant eye and symbolic, if you go to the Masonic, let's go Masonic, and you have the eye at the top of the pyramid, it's largely seen as an interpretation of God. What God that is whatever God you believe in, basically, right? Whether it's the Judeo-Christian versions of God, right, or as the straight Christian, or because obviously they have different versions of what they believe God is. Catholics look at Christ as God, right? Whereas there's different depictions of what God is depending upon what kind of versions of Christianity or versions of whatever religion. But in their particular symbolism, because they are basically, this is symbols of aliens, right? It's aliens, an alien culture. That's why the public couldn't understand it. If the public can't understand it, that's because it's not for you. It's not for you, right? So then you have this moment where all the kind of ghost-like spirits go up there, and there's this kind of idea, all these types of things here. And of course, you've seen giant eye symbolism, just two here. There's giant eye symbolism behind the Pope. I guess this reptilian in the Vatican is an eye symbolism, but it's just as important note to how different their culture is. I mean, who's going to invest and built in 1971 a giant room with a symbolism of a snake or a reptilian, a snake? Who's going to do that, right? If you're a Catholic institution, serious question. But anyway, we come back to here and we see what comes after, or basically after this is around the same time, you have what? You have the goat appear, right? Now the goat appears, which is obviously, you would say, are they called a goat? I can't remember, but those ones in Switzerland, the ones that climb all over the mountain, is a symbol of the Swiss environment. A lot of people are saying that's what this is. I don't think so. I'm going to show you why. Well, there's many reasons why I don't think that's what this is a depiction of, although that's what the surface symbolism is. I guess this is a different video than a normal news roundup, so I'm not sure that people are still interested in this kind of stuff. But here's the thing about this. If you go to Apous, what is Apous? Well, Apous is named after the Egyptian deity of destruction and chaos, right? here you have the asteroid coming with everyone die. And what do you have next? You have the goat, right? Which, this is from the Goddard Tunnel ceremony. And above you have 3 scarab beetles, which are from where? They are from Egyptian. They're Egyptian symbolism, right? The scarab beetle is a sign of rebirth and resurrection. Reading here from Claude, the most important meaning. Scarabs roll dung balls, which Egyptians saw as mirroring how the sun god Ra rolled the sun across the sky, dying, and death. That's largely symbolism of day and night within ancient Egypt, I guess you would say. Is it death, the night? So why 3 scarabs specifically? 3 amplify the power, representing triple protection, the 3 phases of sun's journey: dawn, noon, dusk, emphasis on the resurrection theme, sacred number significance. So this is where I went to Claude and I was saying, well, obviously I know what a scarab beetle is in relation to ancient Egypt, but I was wondering if there was a connection there with the deity Apous. I was just this how I think. They didn't say there was a direct connection. The 3 scarab beetles would represent maximum protective power against chaos and destruction, ensuring renewal and rebirth, even in the face of a cosmic threat, according to Claude. So they're saying these are symbols of of rebirth. So these symbols, I have a different interpretation than Claude, by the way. These symbols are over the goat god, right? The goat god that shows up, of rebirth. This happens after, okay, you have like symbolic interpretation of building of the bunkers. That's in my interpretation. Mainstream would be that's the interpretation of the drilling of the tunnel. The Swiss are very good at drilling tunnels. Of course they are. They're full of mountains, right? That's why all the world's bunkers are there. But I've got a reference for that later. But you have this here. Then you have the asteroid and everyone dies. Then you have them all swept up. These are all the dead people or the souls. And then you basically have the arrival of the goat, right? And you have these beetles of rebirth. Again, Egyptian symbolisms, right? Egyptian symbolisms, asteroids, Apous. Okay, there's not exactly a line which you can draw from one dot to the other. It's just a kind of feeling of connections there, which I thought was interesting. So I talk about that, added in here. Of course, the other astrological symbols, because a lot of people say to me, they always say, as I said, this is a symbol of like that Swiss, what's the name of it? I've got it up here. I can't remember exactly where it is though. I forgot the name. But you know that it's like a goat. What is it called? There's another name for it, obviously. It's a very powerful creature. I just can't remember the name of it for some reason. Everyone else will be able to tell you the name of it. But they say that's what it is. That's not in my opinion, right? Why? Because here is the other symbolism, and I've talked about this before, but let's reference it with the actual, well, I understand this seems like I'm crazy all the time when I say these things, but the other symbol from the Goddard Tunnel opening, this is also by Russia Today, although it's posted on another channel, you can see that there's eclipse symbolism. So here you have the big shaft of like light, right? And you have the eclipse symbolism at the top. So then when the eclipse symbolism happens, right, and you can see the large astrological symbolism here, you have the man standing in the path of light. That's when you have on the other side the baby goat man show up, right? He shows up at a specific astrological time, right? And this is the idea on the other side of the rebirth, right? There's a time of rebirth. There's a time of change happening, as you can see there. And what does the Bank of America mural say? Well, that's a third panel, the Bank of America mural. And when you get it, when I seen this heart many years ago, I knew that they had to be mirrored, because when it was mirrored, it exactly displayed Masonic symbolism. This is a depiction of a Masonic mystic skull. So I don't have it here, but in this specific thing here, everything turns red, right? Everything turns red for a moment, and then the baby goat kind of shows up. The lighting changes. So there's astrological black sun, an astrological event happening with the shaft of light. I realize this is like crayons. People look at this. I mean, I believe this type of stuff, but when I explain it to other people, they think that I'm like crayons on the insane asylum wall, because it wouldn't make any sense. I don't think a lot of stuff like this would even make any sense whatsoever unless you're like pretty down the rabbit hole, right? You've got to be like at the bottom of the rabbit hole for this stuff to actually make any sense to people. But here you have the astrological sign with the planet, right? The astrological sign of the planet. The baby goat shows up, okay? Now you have the doubling of the Bank of America mural, which displays Masonic symbolisms perfectly. Checkerboard pattern for consciousness. You know, obviously pyramids, these staircases are a cryptic depiction of Jacob's ladder. You see that all the time in classical Masonic symbolisms. But what do you have? You have a young man arrive. And if you look at close at his hands, I don't want to get into the, but if you get a high resolution scan of his hands, he doesn't have human hands. Okay, there's no human hands. And the red banner, right? The red banner shows up when the goat does. There's this red light in the tunnel ceremony. Right? And then you have these two astrological sequences, both of these eclipse symbolisms, right? Astrological eclipse symbolisms and these shafts of light with a person in it. Okay, what is this? This is a person in a shaft of light with an eclipse symbolism. I mean, look, okay. Just look at it, I know. It's like I'm trying to explain something to my sister. My sister's just looking at me. He doesn't think someone's saying. Which I can understand. Because the prep work for getting to this point, there's quite a lot of it, right? Okay, so we've got a person in a shaft of light towards an eclipse symbolism in the Goddard Tunnel. Shaft of light, person, and eclipse symbolism, right? The young creature shows up in the shaft of light. Over here we have what? We have a person in a shaft of light with eclipse symbolism on both sides. Shaft of light, eclipse symbolism. We have the red color. I wish I still had the screen capture of the red color, but I have to go do it. You can just go look at it. Everything turns red, and then the baby goat's round, right? So that is the red veil, right? The red kind of like veil the new consciousness. And what do you have? You have a younger person arrive, young baby goat right there, young person arrive, and they do not have human hands. Okay, look at their hands under high resolution, they're reptilian hands. And then what do you have? These people right here are what? They are underground. Okay, they're underground. And look what they're pointing all over the place. There's one person pointing this direction, that direction, because they don't know what to do. What are we to do? They're underground. That's my interpretation. And what do you have in the background? You have two either depictions of burning bushes or what? An asteroid, right? Like a comet. You could say that these could be depictions of either a comet or a burning bush. Fair to interpret it either way. But that would be my interpretation. Now, in classic Masonic symbolism, the checkerboard pattern is a sign of base consciousness, like the consciousness of the plebs, right? The people that are not enlightened, right? So that's why your police, they have a checkerboard pattern around their hats in the UK, in different places, right? However, in Australia or wherever, right? Not necessarily in the United States. Although the United States was founded by Masons. I'm not even saying this is Masonic in the classical sense. By the way, the Masons, classical Masons like George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and all these people, they moved away and they created, things like freedom of speech, right to bear arms, right? Masonic, there's different types of Masonic and there's different types of mystic schools and different agendas and different stratagems. It's like underneath an umbrella of a wide range of different things and ideas, right? But this is completely different in my opinion because the base consciousness is represented by red and white, which shows a completely indifferent change to consciousness of the people. Now, okay, recapping, because we have to recap because it's so crazy. Just recapping here very quickly. So the second Bank of the America mural, which I don't have here, but you can go look it up, was we have the people in the helmets underground with the helmets. They are workmen, the exact same workmen you see here. And those workmen are operating underground, right? They're operating underground, underneath the earth, and they're building things. The same workmen you see here, that's the middle Bank of America mural. Am I getting it mixed up? That's the first Bank of America mural. The middle one is where you have the people with the no one knows what's happening anymore. In fact, I'll go get the Bank of America mural right here so we can go check that out. Okay, so a little bit of time has changed, because when I paused it was about an hour or 2 hours ago. In that time I had some computer problems when I tried to restart recording, so I'm just having to splice this together later and editing. Here is the Masonic symbology, which references the reason why the heart there, that I mirrored it, because between those two astrological pillars you can see there is a full heart on the Masonic symbolism. So to complete that symbolism of the two astrological pillars, I mirrored the heart, and that's why you got the reference here, which I just talked about just prior, which seems like a few minutes ago, but it was a couple of hours ago now. And of course, as I stated in the video, you have two people that are in the shaft of light with the astrological eclipse symbolism. And that's exactly what you see here, is the eclipse symbolism, with the person standing with the astrological eclipse over there and in the shaft of light itself. Again, a person in a shaft of light. A person in a shaft of light. Okay, so we have addressed those types of things. And of course you have the base consciousness. Now you have the little baby goat. Excuse myself if I'm repeating myself. It was a few hours ago now. We have the little youth goat there come out, who's walking down this shaft of light, who appears, right? He is the representative of the dualistic system, which in classical Baphomet symbolism is a dualistic symbolism between male and female. If you look, it's both the male and female, right? It's displayed there. Now what you get, of course, in the middle of this red, okay, there's a big red sheet there. You get the young youth showing up with strange hands. If you look at their hands, you can see that their hands look strange. They're kind of blackened. They look like reptilian hands or something like that. Some people might say, no, that's a reference to some child in a coal mine. Really, I don't know. Maybe it is, but they look kind of like unhuman. They don't look like human hands to me. The hands also look a bit too large for a child, but of course that might be the artist themselves. So the main point here is the sequence. Of course, you can see the time codes here from this 1 hour and 3 minute, this Russia Today video published on World Metal Television. It's 80 minutes and 23 there. Then you get to 19 minutes and 24, as you can see there. And then, of course, you get to 20:05. And then after that, you have the red, right? The big red sheet of light. What do you have in the Bank of America mural? You have a giant red sheet of light. You also have the depiction of the base consciousness changing. Apologies if I'm mentioning some of this before, but I did watch a little bit of the video, but it was 35 minutes long, so I thought I'd just continue from memory, and you can see that there. So there seems to be a reference to some kind of time or period. What is an eclipse? An eclipse is a reference to time. What is a person in a shaft of light? I don't exactly know. But the scarab beetles themselves, as you can see in the Goddard Tunnel ceremony there, you can see the scarab beetles over top of the Baphomet, and the scarab beetles are, of course, a symbolism of transformation, as referenced by Claude here. Transformation is the scarab beetles over top of this Baphomet-like entity, referencing a symbolic, I think, symbolic representation of transformation. So it'll be a transformative experience. Now we're seeing it here, the transformation, we are seeing it here, and the different base consciousness changing to red and white instead of classically black and white within Freemasonry. You're seeing the shift with the red sheet over top, and you're seeing the red shift here within the symbolisms. What I mean is there's a cross-reference of symbolisms at the heights of power in this ceremony and the artwork and in different other places. I could go into them. You're seeing this cross-reference of the same kind of symbolic pattern, if you will. Now, it's not exactly the same, but it's very similar. It's kind of, well, it's similar enough for you to think, you know, you're living in the Da Vinci Code, right? I mean, what does that mean? You see these types of symbolisms of the person in the shaft of light with eclipse symbolism, and then you see person in the shaft of light with the eclipse symbolism. What does that mean? You know, we live, it's true, we live, a fact is, there's a fact in this world, which people have to come to terms of, that we live in a world which is two worlds, right? It's like the night and the day, you know, like in Egyptian, to reference Egyptian mythology, the kind of like Apous of night and destruction in the day. But the world really is like the owl at the top of the pyramid, a predator class, which only benefits in terms of being able to hunt if the world's kept in darkness. You have this world which is just full of symbolic language, but you're never told what it means. For instance, the giant reptilian in the Vatican, the Pope's audience hall, has been there since 1971. What does it mean? Why is it there? People say it's just a fisheye lens. Is it? This is a Gettysburg picture there. And, you know, this is the world we live in, right? It is the world we live in, which is the strange world of two types of symbolisms. So if this is a reptilian face in the Vatican, which I think anybody could see, this is clearly some kind of reptilian. In fact, I put it into Claude and asked him what he saw, and he said it's a giant reptilian. That's what he said. I don't know. But you have these two worlds. You have the world of like the Da Vinci Code world, right? Which is, I think his name's something Langdon or Christopher Langdon or something in the Da Vinci Code. Michael Langdon, is that it? And he is trying to decrypt this type of world. But this world is full of things to decrypt. This to me is a mystery for a different reason. It's not that they constructed a giant reptilian, as I've said before. The real mystery to me is millions of people have gone there. And they never talk about it. Where's grandma saying, oh my God, I went in the building, it's a giant reptilian. I've seen video, which used to be available on YouTube until it was removed. They've had a laser scan of the inside of it. I used to have the laser scan as well. Lost that. Lost most of my archives over the years. Due to my own incompetence, basically. You know, in order to back up data. But I seen one where it was the back of the building and it was Christmas, right? Apparently some Christmas ceremony. And it was a giant reptilian. It's plain as day. All those videos are gone from YouTube. I don't know. I mean, wow, that's all I have to say. I mean, I sometimes I just don't understand it. I really don't. I don't understand. As I said, one of the greatest mysteries to me, another mystery is in society, how you can have all this kinds of stuff happening and no one says anything. You don't even need to have security clearances or be threatened with imprisonment or because it's classified or whatever the case. I mean, just general conversation about the vaccine. It's so just invisible. People getting cancer left, right. You know, falling over from whatever. And no one says a thing. It's like, if that isn't some kind of spiritual realm or something, like we're in like some kind of spiritual war, I don't know, but, you know, either people are really awake, not woke, or they're either awake from their dream or they're not. Anyway, let's jump back to here. So that's what I mean. I'm not saying this is like concrete evidence, but it's kind of like breadcrumbs for me. There's a lot of breadcrumbs here. Why does the same symbolism repeat? Right? Why does it repeat like this? Like repeat at the heights. This is the heights of power, right? And I could go into all the other interpretations here. It's like we're on the subject. Why not? For instance, these people are below base consciousness, right? These are the people below whatever's happening here. And they don't know what's happening. They're just pointing to things. Not sure if this is supposed to represent people underground or people underneath this new type of consciousness. This new consciousness, and in Freemasonry, the checkerboard pattern is supposed to represent, I believe, base consciousness, what I've been told. you know, that's why you have the checkerboard pattern over police hats and things like that. They represent, you know, that world, the world of the unshapen, you know, the stone yet to be shaped, or a different type of consciousness. Well, this is red and white. I've never seen that before ever in Freemasonry. Interesting though, also when you do mirror it, you can see how these like these half triangle, kind of like in this different patterning which this kid's standing on, these stripes turn into triangles. But you know, the half a heart becomes a whole heart, obviously, but you have Jacob's ladder on both sides, you know, pyramids in the background, a lot of Egyptian symbolism. Apous, for example, Egyptian god of deity of chaos, like it's a snake god actually. I don't think I have this reference here to Apous. Oh yes, I have it over here. So he is a snake god. The most important meaning, scarab's role. Egyptians were, it's got to do with whatever, you can read it there. I was looking for where it said snake god. You've heard of Apous, obviously you can go look this up. I was looking at the three beetles in relation to Apous and asking it questions, but it gave me this information, so I just copied it and put it here. But you can read some of that on screen if you want. Apous being that Egyptian deity, the three scarab beetles. So yeah, I mean the language, you know, which is a different culture, right? The language we can't understand in this specific opening because it's not our culture. It's not of our culture, right? It's not Santa Claus and reindeer or baby Jesus in a manger or whatever, right? It's like, it's got nothing to do, we don't understand it. What is it, right? Oh, it's a different language because it's a different culture. These people are completely different. They have different symbolisms. They have different language. They have a different interpretation of things. I know what they celebrate at Christmas, but I'd be willing to bet it's not Christmas. It's like Saturnalia, or what is some kind of Romanesque holiday and celebration of you know, the planet Saturn or whatever, and you know, all these kinds of things, right? What are we up to? Because the other recording was 35 minutes, up to 42. Okay. Well, I've gone over basically everything. I guess there's not really much else to talk about apart from the other murals if you want to stick around. Well, so what's my interpretation of the three murals now, just for the record? Well, the first one to me seems like, and if you mirror this giant becomes a perfect eye at the top of the pyramid. Kind of. You have to mirror it a bit to the right, but people have wondered, what does EQ mean? What do these things mean?